Hello, salut. I am the Rasta Witch. Here's where we learn the way of the Yan Sui Rasta, which is to say, my kind of Ital. Please subscribe and begin your own kind of Yan Sui witchcraft. All roads lead to Rome. Home. Oh, hi. Okay, so this video is about video is about the about dreadlocks. See, I've got dreadlocks. Click click. Um about dreadlocks, okay. Because that's definitely something to say. It's like, oh, so this is part of the playlist Early Rastafarian History. So it's like, hello, you've barely even talked about dreadlocks. What's this dreadlock thing all about? Yeah, good question, because it's more about the dreadlocks than a lot of other things, The main concepts of Rasta is Ital, like people arguing about this Bible verse and that Bible verse and whether the Bible is the Word of God and everything. Rastas want to say, guys, what does that have to do with vegetarianism and whether that helps the planet? It's like, what the hell? What are you guys even talking about? Who cares? We already know that the Bible's written by a bunch of humans. It's a human book. Not all Rastas get that, but by now they should, especially the ones that have really taken a fondness and a loveness for Selassie. Who the energy of Haile Selassie is that peace is the top priority, that we're all part of a human family, that international morality and international loyalty and citizenship is the higher priority, and our interest to love one another and follow Jesus' example, who's probably mostly fictional, so is Mary, but they're the best archetypes from our past, and our past are our roots. And so we should never disregard our roots. That makes the tree fall down. But to take it step by step, moving to the next step doesn't mean, clearing the white, erasing the chalkboard and starting all over again. It consists of learning from the past so that history doesn't repeat itself, and to building a better future. Like Selassie would have called it, modernization. So, within the spirit of Haile Selassie, there would be a lot of people inside and even more so outside of Rastafari that still don't get it, do they? If this is about Jah Rastafari, and you have to remember the tendency towards Egypt with Rasta. Another video that I still need to do, this video, and then I need to do another one on the Black Presence of the Bible. In the Black Presence of the Bible one, you'll learn more about this whole Jah Rastafari thing. The pharaohs, they would, like Amun would, had the Egyptian Book of the Dead rewritten and called himself Amun Ra. They'd put Ra at the end. Well, this isn't Ra Tafari, it's Jah Rastafari, So there's lots of emphasis on Ethiopia, on Egypt, which is the same thing. Okay, so with that being said, that has everything to do with the dreadlocks. See, so the concept of the dreadlocks. I'm going into my Bible. See, did you notice my Bible? It's like the 1930 something, 1917 notes. It's like the Schofield Bible that the first Rastas had, so I can know that, so I can see, the same notes, the little notes that come with it and stuff that the early Rastas had, that I might gain some insight into their minds. But in the first 5 books, the books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, we're going to the book of Numbers, chapter 6. In Numbers chapter 6, we learn about the Nazarite vow. A Nazarite, okay? So a Nazarite is what the Bible would have called a dreadlock. So some famous Nazarites, Samuel, was a Nazarite. So Samuel from the Old Testament would have been a dreadlock. Of course, Samson. Samson would be probably the most famous one. And John the Baptist and Jesus were all dreadlocks. So the Nazarite vow is, I'll go into more detail, but it's in a nutshell that you grow your hair, that you don't cut or comb or trim your hair, you just let it grow into dreadlocks, and then that would be a power unto you. Remember the story of Samson? That Delilah wanted to know his, what the secret to destroying Samson, because nobody could beat him up. And everybody has a weakness. She would keep bugging him, what's the weakness? And finally, Samson let in. Women were his weakness, obviously. And he let in, and finally told her, it's my hair. And so she cut his hair off while he was sleeping. And then he woke up, he didn't have hair, and then they were able to catch him because his hair was his strength. Okay? So right now there's people that think, everybody thinks they know everything about the Bible. No. And by the way, the Bible calls people without dreadlocks bald heads, like Bob Marley's song, chase them crazy bald heads out of the yard. The bald heads, because the thing is with dreadlocks is to get rid of them, you have to shave your head, because it's not like you can comb this shit out, Some people can with really thin hair, but it's a permanent thing. To get rid of them, you have to start over, shave your head, and grow your hair back out. Okay, so Samson. Okay, so here we got in the book of Judges. So that's like towards Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, the 7th book. No. Did I go right? Yeah, 7th book. The 13th chapter, the Judges, chapter 13. It's talking about the parents of Samson, so like before he's born. And verse 5, from verse 3 first. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman. So an angel appeared to Samson's mom and said unto her, behold, thou art barren, thou bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. So no pork and wine. Verse 5, for lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Of course, if you've seen my video on my autobiographical, you can see I started my son at birth with dreadlocks. So that's an interesting thing. So he should be a Nazarite from birth. Okay, so then moving ahead, because I'm trying to make this more about the dreadlocks part of the story and not as much, to make this video not too long, about Samson. Chapter 16, verse 13, and Delilah said unto Samson, hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, if thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. Okay, so for people that think Samson was just a long-haired man and not a dreadlock, why do we know he had 7 locks? He was a bongo dread, like people that have just real thin dreads it's just a dreadlock, but a bongo dread is someone that dares to let. And this is the 5th time I've had dreadlocks in my life. The first time I was a bongo dread, then all the other times in between I wasn't, because you get more flack. But this time, because this is my retirement plan, this is my retirement plan. I'm getting, pretty soon I'm going to be a senior citizen, and so these are my I'm doing the bongo dread thing. He had 7 locks. That's bongo dread stuff right there. Verse 19, and she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man. Hey, he's asleep, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head, and blah, 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 blah. So that's a strong evidence that it's, why do we know that he had 7 locks? And why, when Babylon reads the story, some of the most important Rasta points, like the story of Numbers chapter 11, if you've seen my video on cannabis in the Bible, they're all, oh yeah, I remember that story. Manna falling from heaven and the quails coming and the Lord giving them quails. And you're like, oh yeah, like when all the elders got together and they got totally stoned, and in the with all the THC in their blood, in the glory of the Lord, they figured out that they should get quails. And they're like, what? It doesn't say that, because Babylon skips that part of the story, of course, And just the same with Samson, You never hear anyone when they tell the story of Samson that he had 7 locks, that we know the number of locks, because that makes him sound, black, and that's what Babylon does. Okay, so moving on to Numbers chapter 6. So the Nazirite vow. So those are Nazirites. What is the Nazirite vow? Well, the Nazirite vow is Numbers chapter 6. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow of a Nazirite to separate themselves unto the Lord. Okay? He shall. So that's something that I think that within Rastafari that you don't hear. They leave that part out. They make it sound like you have to have dreadlocks. Selassie, I didn't have dreadlocks. And the Nazirite vow, like I just said, it's not something you have to do. It's something that you can do if you want to. If you want to separate yourself to the work of the Lord and purify yourself and separate yourself even more unto the work of the Lord, which is really your inner work, because that's where Jah is. And I've already gone over what my necklace means. Then you can if you want to, Verse 3, He shall separate himself from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar or wine, or vinegar of strong drink, neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes or dried. So nothing of the vine, no drinks, you can't be a drunk. No alcoholics, you can't even drink at all. In fact, you can't have raisins or grapes, just skip that particular plant. Of course, that's why, and maybe I should do another video on this, on the new wine. The new wine is different. You can do the new wine, which is cannabis, It says the new wine forms, and everybody's like, oh, that's not what the new wine is, of course, but the new wine forms into a cluster. Those are buds of the cannabis plant. And of course, Revelations 22:2 says they would be, you could get them, they'd come year round, all 12 months of the year, and would be a plant of renown, like it says in, I think, Jeremiah. It's cannabis, all right, the new wine. Considering everything you get with the message of Haile Selassie, especially. All the days of his separation shall he eat nothing that is made of the vine tree, from the kernels even to the husk. So you can smoke all the herb you want, but you can't be a drunk. No alcohol drinking. And so that's why Rastas don't drink, but yet they have dreadlocks and they smoke cannabis. All the days of the vow of his separation there shall no razor come upon his head, until the days be fulfilled in which the separation himself unto the Lord. He shall be holy, and shall let the locks of his head grow. All the days he separateth himself unto the Lord, he shall come at no dead body. He shall make himself. So that's like when my sister died, and I went to the funeral. But when everybody said, okay, you can come up and see your body, I stayed in the back. And all the rest of my family went up and looked at him. It was the first time I had dreadlocks, because if you see a dead body, then you have to shave your locks off and start over again. He shall not make himself unclean for his father, nor for his mother, nor for his brother, nor his sister, when they die, because the consecration of his God is upon his head. All the days of his separation he is holy unto the Lord. And if any man die very suddenly in front of him, and he hath defiled the head of his consecration, he shall shave his head, and blah blah. So And so then it goes into a peace offering. He shall offer for a sacrifice of peace offering unto the Lord, and blah blah blah. You can read it yourself. So that's the concept of this, the separation. You'll hear Rastas talking about in the dreadlocks. Dreadlocks are called a crown. Of course, there's a really strong influence by the sadhu, the Hindus, the Hindu monks of India. The Hindu monks call their dreadlocks, what was that, jata or something like that, and it translates into English crown. So when you hear Rastas talk about their dreadlocks or their crown, and when they put it up like that and they call it their crown, you got to carry your crown. That means, that's because that's your jata. Is jata right? It's been so long since I said that word, but it's your crown, because we're kings and queens, priests and priestesses of Jah Rastafari, and you got to carry your crown. The carry your crown part, because Jesus said you got to carry your cross. You got to carry the burden. Like I know that an interview with one of the early punk rock bands, Death, they said being black is like being a punk rocker. They know all these punk rockers that have a mohawk and that, and you might call a mohawk. You might do a mohawk instead. Instead of doing dreadlocks, do a mohawk. That's what the early punk rockers did. They got their ideas from Rasta. Instead of dreadlocks, they did mohawks. But he said, yeah, you get these dyeing their hair green and having mohawks now, and then one day they grow up and they shave their locks off and wear a suit and tie and get a really decent job. But when you're black, you can't do that. There's nothing you can do. It's kind of like being transgender. It's like you can, like the difference between a transvestite, which is someone that just changes their clothes, usually for sexual reasons or performance reasons, like with a drag queen, versus a transgender or a transsexual. A transsexual is a transgender. Transgender is the umbrella word, meaning anyone that's transitioned to a different gender. Transsexual means you've had the sex change of the between your legs, the gender affirmation surgery. And then the hormones, and you do permanent things. So it's like whereas a transvestite just can dress up, go back into dressing like a boy, and then nobody even knows they're LGBT. The thing about being transgender, especially if you have a tattoo like I do, the thing about being transgender is there's nowhere you can run, there's nowhere you can hide. You have to be LGBT everywhere you go, especially with a voice like mine and everything. There's no hiding. I have to carry the burden. I have to carry the cross of LGBT everywhere I go. Same thing with Rasta. You got to carry the cross. Not carry the cross. You got to carry your crown, like we say. Another saying relevant, like the early Rastas were polygamous, but doesn't mean they got married. In Rasta, there's a saying, "What you make can brook." Meaning what you make can break, so they wouldn't get married and things like that or make those type of commitments. You make commitments like dreadlock commitments. Dreadlocks are a lot of work and they take a lot of time and effort and everything, but yeah, you can shave it off in one day and it's, because life is a spiral. Who you are isn't the you of the past, and who you are isn't the you of the future. Who you are is in the now, and that's the eternal part of you. There's no heaven and hell. There's just, those are states of consciousness. There's the consciousness of one love, to be enlightened, or the consciousness of hell, which is to be damned. Is to have non-progressive beliefs and thoughts and in your head, in your mark in your head and on your hand, in your thinking and your doing. So what you make can brook. You can't. You shouldn't get married to someone because you don't know who you're going to be in the future. You might become someone completely different, and so those are not the good kind of commitments to make. You should make commitments that are natural and that you can change in case you become a different person. What you make can brook. So there's also what are dreadlocks? Dreadlocks are the natural state of man and woman. Because it's what happens when you don't cut or comb your hair. So it's the way humans are supposed to look. So that just has a lot of messages right there of the meditations right there. If you want to, you can be more natural and separate yourself that way unto the Lord, and be vegetarian like He wanted. And if you see my video on what ital means, part of being ital, you might take it one step further and also be a dreadlock, and just do it the natural way, or not. Maybe all you are is ital, and you don't do that extra commitment of your dreadlocks. So it's a message, it's a teaching. It also is kind of like a Antifa, anti-fascist, like it's one of the reasons I have tattoos everywhere. The Bible says you shouldn't do tattoos. This is me saying the Bible's not the word of God. This is my body. This is my life. I should be able to make my choices.